Hello world, welcome to the 80th Climate Change Emergency Awareness Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It is 7:50 a.m. and it is 65 degrees here. Today it'll get up to 82. I think by Monday it'll get up to 91 degrees Fahrenheit in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, USA. This is June 19th. This is the 80th Climate Change Protest Emergency Protest Rally, also known as Juneteenth. Started with a Let's see, hold on, I got a truck. It's a black holiday that has hopefully spilled into a white world. And Juneteenth is June 19th, and it is the day that the slaves in Texas, in Galveston, Texas, were told that they were freed and in 1865. And so it took a while for the news, the Emancipation Proclamation, to get that far, but by then they already had the 13th Amendment was part of the Constitution of the United States. So the slaves were already freed, they didn't know it. The funny thing about, and it's not very funny, is that the 13th Amendment allows, or says the abolishment of slavery except for those imprisoned. And that spills into a whole thing about our candidates right now and how they feel about what they've done in the past as far as their political actions. And if you looked into each candidate as the person in the White House's present actions as well as the Democratic nominee for president, you'd be surprised as to how they have single-handedly increased the population in prisons in the United States. But that's a separate subject, and people are choosing who they want, and that's what democracy is all about, if we think we have democracy, which is up for question at this time. Basically, it's a corporate purchased players that are in the White House and in the House and the House of Representatives and the Senate. But that's a separate issue from the climate change, but not really, and I will get into that at the end of the talk. Right now, the CO2 levels are hanging around 416 parts per million. It will go down in the next few months due to the trees coming online and providing us with much needed oxygen and also scrubbing the air of carbon dioxide. So it'll probably drop down about 410, 411 parts per million, which is absolutely ridiculous because humans can only survive when, or humans have only survived when parts per million have been between 200 and 280 parts per million. So it's a devastating consequence coming our way. And there's a 10 to 15, 20-year time lag between CO2 levels and temperatures catching up. And we're seeing the effects of it around the whole world right now, and how bad it will become is off the charts, and we don't recognize how bad it will become. So at 416 parts per million and the heat coming our way, the region that matters more than any right now is the Arctic. And I mean the whole region of the Arctic, not just the North Pole sea ice. With the loss of snow and the loss of ice up there, you lose the albedo effect, which is the reflectivity of the sun back into the atmosphere. So instead of the sun going into the atmosphere, the light from the sun, you get it heating up the soil as well as the seawater around it. So you lose. It causes a feedback loop where you lose more snow and ice, and then you lose more sea ice, and it just gets warmer and warmer. The effect of that is you get a wavy jet stream. And the consequence of that is you end up with drought, floods, just bad planting season, and you end up with a hunger issue as far as fragility of our system to provide food for everyone. So with the wavy jet stream, you also get high temperatures and low temperatures in places where they don't belong. And right now in the Arctic region, for example, it is 92 degrees today. And up in the inside the Arctic Circle itself it's 90 degrees. So here in Gettysburg it's going to be 82. So it's going to be warmer up in the Arctic than it is in Pennsylvania, which is much farther south. So you get these feedback loops going. You get permafrost loss, which contributes to carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, CO2, which is another greenhouse gas, and then you get methane. With permafrost loss, you get methane increasing, which is CH4, which is a horrible greenhouse gas, which is initially, for the first 2 years, 160 times more potent than is CO2. I can't believe the number of trucks going through here today. It's noisy as all get out. It's just ridiculous. We're still in a coronavirus sort of kind of not really up to speed lockdown, and we have a green light going, but it's crazy as to where we're headed right now. Anyhow, so you get the permafrost loss, which contributes to CO2 and CH4 methane, which causes more heat, due to greenhouse gases, and it just intensifies, especially over the Arctic. You get the wavy jet stream, as I said. You get crop losses, drought, rain, floods, cold, heat, fires. Right now, Siberia has many fires going, not only in the arboreal forest, but also in the peat bogs, which contributes more CO2 in the air and also does not become a carbon sink, it becomes a carbon emitter. So with that, you get, with the loss of sea ice, you get methane hydrates, which are encased pockets of methane encased in ice. And in the shallow seas, in the 4 seas of Siberia, you can have that methane escaping into the atmosphere, which also amplifies the greenhouse gases, which also amplifies the heating in the area. And eventually it'll affect the whole world with more wavy jet streams and also generalized heating in all. So my theory, and no one's talking about this, and no scientist or anything, most are contending that as long as the sea ice is there in the Arctic, up in the North Pole, here comes a truck and it's 60 miles an hour. This is nuts. So this is starting to become a battle here to talk and yet maintain my composure. So I forgot where it was. You get more sea ice loss, and no one's talking about this thing, which is most scientists, all the scientists, feel that as long as there's sea ice in the North Pole, the region will remain cool. And I contend that, as an example, right now you get 92 degrees up in the Arctic, that as long as the edges warm up, just like when you go to the ocean to go swimming, you get warm pockets, where you go swimming in the shallow seas, and then as you go deeper and deeper, it gets colder and colder. Well, if you have the warmer seas, and that's where the methane and the carbon dioxide is located in the peat bogs and whatnot, or in the shallow seas, you get greenhouse gases escaping, and it doesn't matter if there's sea ice or not up in the Arctic. You get a situation going, and it's not good as far as greenhouse gases go. Here comes another truck. This is crazy. You'd think I was on a super highway or something. Anyhow, so with the mass amount of sea ice leaving, you don't necessarily need all that sea ice to be gone to cause a massive disruption in the Earth's climate. And I contend that as long as the edges are clear of ice, we're in deep trouble as far as the society goes and humanity goes and all life on Earth. So the Permian mass extinction, which happened 250 million years ago, is definitely a possibility, where 95% of all life was lost on Earth. And the question comes down to, whether your leaders are ready for such an event or to get us out of this situation. And the coronavirus around the world proved that the leaders are not ready for anything as far as saving us from ourselves. They both basically ran and hid or didn't do anything, didn't propose legislation, let the whole thing play out and let it up to the 50 governors in 50 states to handle their own situation. The federal government was inept. Totally. And I don't mean just Republicans, I mean Democrats too. They don't have a clue as to how bad the climate change situation is going to be, and no one really does as far as how horrendous this is going to be. But it is not going to be nice, and it's going to be much worse than what we could ever imagine. So, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about climate change. They don't treat it like it's a real issue. They treat the public like they're children and they can't handle it. So the information doesn't get out, therefore it becomes a political issue because both sides treat it like a football rather than a hand grenade. So if you don't talk about it and start working on it, it's going to end up killing us all, literally. You need to recognize these people for the corporatists that they are. That they're all about the money, and they don't care about you, and they don't care about what's going to happen to the planet for some odd reason. It's almost like they're lizard brains, and they can't see farther than now. Everyone has an obligation to take care of the next 7 generations, and right now we can't even take care of this generation. And the people you're putting in charge, that you keep voting, that say, you say, oh, they have to be Republican or Democrat, then your thinking is wrong, because 50% of the public don't even vote. And if those 50% turned out and only half of them voted for the candidate they liked in another party, such as the Green Party, putting out a hint, That would change the whole course of events. It would force the other parties hard left and start worrying about the environment rather than worrying about how much profit and loss there is in the world. You can't eat money on a dead planet. You can't eat money when everyone's dead. So it's something to think about. I'm not even saying take away the votes from the Democrats or Republicans, because God forbid anyone think that way. But if those people who choose not to vote just throw their votes into the Green Party, it will turn over the whole thing like an apple cart, and you'll see a massive change in the whole political world in the United States, and eventually force change in the whole world. So I suggest everyone get educated about climate change, because your leaders are not going to do it, and you're letting the tail wag the dog in this case. Failure to act will kill us. And if you want to see and do your research as to who to follow on YouTube, I suggest you follow Paul Beckwith, Peter Wadhams, Peter Carter, Kevin Anderson, Guy McPherson, and even Environmental Coffee House on YouTube. So if you follow them and start researching their broadcasts over the last 8 years or so, you can really get some good information and become an expert in climate change too. And everyone needs to be, so you realize how bad you're being duped by these people down in Washington, D.C., and also regional and local as well. They don't understand what's happening, and we need people in charge that understand what's happening and come up with ideas and employ the local citizenry around the whole country as to how to get out of this situation and what will work for each region. So it needs to be a group effort, and we're not doing it, and we're on the road to hell. And I give probably 3 years till everyone's affected by climate change in somewhat, and in 6 years I think we're all going to have trouble surviving or getting food to eat. So it's not a good talk, but we don't have good solutions right now, and we do need the tough talk. We need people to do more tough talk and get out on the media and start doing broadcasts and posting things constantly about climate change, forcing the tail to follow the dog rather than the vice versa. So I'll see you next week. It's June 26th will be the 81st climate change protest. See you later. Bye.